I'm delighted to introduce Harriet Squirrel and Catherine McGee from our safeguarding team, who are going to run through today's session for us. So over to you, Harriet and Catherine.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's very exciting to see so many people here. I'm Harriet Squirrel. I'm Head of Family Support Programmes and Safeguarding Lead for Contact. And I'm passing over to Catherine.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Also nice to see some familiar faces in the room and new faces. So if I've seen you before, good to see you again. If I haven't, it's nice to meet you. I'm Catherine. I'm Contact's Head of Statutory and Business Development and also a member of the safeguarding team at Contact. We're going to start the session, if it's okay with everyone, by running a quick Mentimeter poll, just to get a feel for where everybody's at in terms of their kind of confidence levels and to just ask a few questions and get us all warmed up interactive with one another. So Harriet, if you don't mind, I will take control and just share my screen real quick. Bear with me 2 ticks. Can't everyone see my screen?
Not
I think
yet.
that's a no, not yet. I do apologize. How about now?
It's yeah. It's
excellent. Very good. Okay, so for anyone that is new to using Mentimeter, if you go to menti.com and then use this code here, 137. Oh, sorry, my little screen guy's gone over it. 1370269. It will give you some of the questions that we've got. And once people start answering those questions, you'll be able to see a little bubble of all the different things that people are popping in there. So we'll leave that open for a few seconds and then I'll scroll over to the next one when this starts to populate. Do please pop in the chat if you're having any problems getting into Mentimeter or if it's not opening or anything. Oh, good. It's working for somebody. This is great. Thank you, everyone.
Yay.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone that's completing that. I can see there are still some thoughts coming in, so I'll leave it on screen for another couple of moments. But a lot of these things are things that we see at Contact as well quite often. Some of the things that some of our colleagues come into contact with through doing their roles as well. And hopefully the information that we'll talk about throughout this session will help in kind of supporting you through some of these situations and what different processes we've got in place that might be helpful for you. I can see answers are still coming in, but I'm going to skip to the next slide. Hopefully, if you are answering, it won't prevent you from doing that because we have some other questions around confidence. So the next one is around coming into the session, how confident you are in your ability to identify a safeguarding concern. I'll leave this on screen for about 30 seconds and then I'll skip to the next one as well. Just to say as well, this is completely anonymous, so please feel free to answer it honestly. And we'll ask similar questions at the end just to check that the session's been valuable for everybody.
Really pleased to see some confidence in everybody joining us today. That's really encouraging.
Lovely. I'm going to skip to the next slide now. And then this is the last question and then we'll get into the session. That's great. Thank you. It's really good to see that people, for the most part, are confident in what action to take when a concern arises. And for everybody that's not quite sure, hopefully some of the information that we share today will can help increase that confidence level. Fab. I think we've got everyone there. So I'm going to stop sharing now and hand back over to Harriet for a moment.
Fantastic. Thank you. Hopefully I am sharing the correct bit of my screen. Does that look right for everybody? Aims of the training?
Got it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. So as it says, the aims of the training are so that you'll know what to do if you think that you have a child or a vulnerable adult that is at risk. and hopefully consolidate the knowledge that you already have about the forum safeguarding reporting processes, and increasing your confidence in how to deal with any concerns that you have. So obviously we're Contact, and our processes and procedures will be slightly different from yours, but the overall aims of safeguarding are pretty much the same wherever you go. We want the children to be safe, and if we're concerned, we need to raise that concern. So, Catherine, are you taking the first part of this?
Yes, I'll come back in.
You want me to change the slide?
Thank you. So on screen just now is Contact's safeguarding statement, and we recommend that you would have something similar for your forum, and I imagine the majority of you already do have something similar. At Contact, we take safeguarding very seriously, and we believe that protecting people from harm is everybody's responsibility. And this statement sets out our organisational stance on safeguarding. You can read the full statement online. The link's on the slide just there, and we'll share the slides afterwards. So feel free to take a look at it at your leisure. I won't read it all out now, but perhaps leave it on screen for another couple of seconds just in case anybody would like to read it.
Sure.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about our policies and associated documents, how we identify concerns. Oh, excuse me, my screen's gone a little strange. Sorry about that. How we identify concerns, how we action them, and how we keep a record of them. So we'll talk about our general policies and procedures. Just want to recognise that there might be some differences across forums on some of the terminology that we use to describe different roles. So some of you might have safeguarding leads, safeguarding officers, or you might call it something else. So we use designated safeguarding officer, for example. And your own forums, policies and processes should make it clear which role does what within the work that you're doing. But for the purpose of this session, we'll use the terms safeguarding lead and designated safeguarding officers. So I hope that is okay, but feel free, if it's unclear, the roles that we're talking about, put a question in the chat or shout out and for that. But in terms of safeguarding policies and procedures, you should have a safeguarding children policy and a safeguarding adults at risk policy. Ideally, they should cover definitions of abuse, other useful policies to use in conjunction with them. So if you've got any other policies that you use as a forum that might link to what's covered in those policies, they should be included or listed. We recommend that it includes good practice on recruitment, induction, and ongoing support for people. Some guidance on allegations against a member of staff, which we know can be really challenging and really worrisome for people. And also the role of the safeguarding review team or safeguarding lead or DSO or whatever you call that responsible person or people within your organisation. Thank you, Harriet.
Is this my screen now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I think we're all really, really clear about children being vulnerable and at risk and needing to be safeguarded. But I just wanted to give a little bit of an outline about adults at risk. So an adult at risk is a vulnerable person who's experiencing obviously abuse, neglect, etc. But there are specific things that make them vulnerable. So they're 18 plus or 16 in Scotland. And so they have mental health problems, a physical disability, a drug and alcohol addiction, sensory impairment, learning disabilities, acquired brain injury. That sort of a kind of a formal reason that they might be more vulnerable than other people. So being a parent carer doesn't make them a vulnerable adult. However, they may be a parent carer who is a vulnerable adult because they also have one of these other things as well. So just wanted to take a moment to sort of clarify what we mean when we're talking about adults at risk and vulnerable adults. So, excuse me. Again, like children, it means that they aren't able to care for them or sort of protect themselves if they become involved in a vulnerable situation. And also they're more at risk of being in that vulnerable situation because of the variety of issues that I have just shared. If you can share your concerns with that vulnerable adult, then that is obviously preferable. And when you're making a referral, it's really important to try to work with the people that we're making the referral about. However, that is not a requirement. And if you think that it would put them in greater danger or put somebody else at risk, then you carry on and make that referral without getting their consent. You don't have to have the consent of a vulnerable adult to make a referral. So I think that's something that people sometimes aren't sure about because they're adults. But if they are classed as a vulnerable adult, you make a referral without consent if that is going to keep people safer. Okay, so within your forums, you all have individual policies and procedures. I know that there's a template that is provided if needed, but you may well have, a local authority policy, or there may be an organisation that you're part of that provides policies for you. So I'm really aware that we're all working within slightly different policies here, but the general content is going to be very similar. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that you need to include. Obviously, somebody has a concern about risk. We always suggest that a safeguarding lead is informed within 24 hours, or a manager of you identifying that you feel that there's a concern. Obviously, if you can't wait that 24 hours and you think it's an immediate concern, then actually you need to be ringing the police rather than talking to your manager or a safeguarding lead, because if it's a real immediate risk, then that needs to be addressed by services immediately. But otherwise, we suggest 24 hours to contact somebody within 24 hours. You record whatever it is that the conversation you've had, or the experience you've witnessed or whatever, in writing with as much factual information as possible. It's really important that we don't put our own kind of judgment or thoughts on what has happened. You write the facts of what you've heard or the facts of what you've seen. And then you discuss it with your manager or the safeguarding lead within the forum. If they aren't available, then another forum officer or parent participation advisor would be perfect. If the parent participation advisor feels that they need help, if it's a really complex situation, then they can get in touch with the designated safeguarding officers at Contact, and we can, talk through what we would do or what we think. But we cannot make a decision or a referral on behalf of a forum. Your safeguarding referrals have to come from you and your forum. So we can advise and support, but we cannot make the referral or decision for you. Okay. Decision making. So when you talk to your manager, you or your safeguarding officer, you'll decide on a course of action. There may be that nothing needs to be done. Your manager actually feels that, given X, Y, and Z, this isn't a safeguarding issue, and you just need to write a report of what it is, and you leave it at that. You may need to seek further information from somebody else. You may want to come to your parent participation advisor, clarification about things. You might need to go back to the parent, and this is where I'd say the recording of what you've seen or talked about or witnessed is so important, because the more information that you can gather, the better. So if there's already services involved in some way, then it's really key that you have that information, because that can often determine what happens next. If there's already a social worker involved, then, you know, there might be a specific person you need to speak to rather than just a general kind of referral to be made. So it's quite important to get as much as you can without, you know, asking leading questions or being too intrusive, but as much information as you can is really important. And then if you decide, yeah, okay, there is a concern here and we think that maybe some more professional support and advice needs to be inputted, then you'd make a referral to the local multi-agency safeguarding hub, which is known as MASH. I'm sure you're really familiar with that. It's really, as I was saying before with the vulnerable adults, it's really important to try to work alongside the family. The overarching aims of safeguarding and working with children and their families is to work together. So it's really important to try to explain why you feel concerned and that you will need to pass this information on. Unless you think that that is going to put a child at greater risk, because then we make the referral regardless. You don't need to have the consent of a parent or, as I said, the consent of a vulnerable adult. If you think that telling them that you're making a referral is going to put them at greater risk, please don't. Yeah, and as I said before, contact the police if it's a really immediate thing, because, you know, we don't need to be faffing about with managers and safeguarding leads and what have you if it's a real immediate emergency. I just wanted to say on this as well that I think your work is slightly different to the work within Contact in that you will have potentially quite close relationships with the people within your forums. You might have friendships, you might have, you know, worked with these people for a long time. And so that can feel quite difficult to deal with if you need to go on to make a referral. So we'll come on later to some wellbeing support, but there, you know, use the support mechanisms that you've got and talk to people about that difficulty. But please don't let it stop you making that referral, because it's key that, you know, we all are responsible for ensuring people are safe. And if you have a concern, regardless of your relationship with them, it's really key that you talk to somebody else and make those concerns aware, make people aware of the concerns that you have. Okay. So you've decided that a child or a vulnerable adult is at risk of significant harm and there's concern for their welfare. Your forum safeguarding lead will usually report the concern to the MASH team that I mentioned earlier. And most local authorities have a form for you to fill in online, you know, details of the family, details of the concerns, etc. If the forum, as Catherine said earlier, you have lots of different names for this role, but, you know, if the designated safeguarding officer can report the concern, or the forum safeguarding lead, but if they're not around, the manager, you know, will have another route to go down. So don't worry that you know, so and so's on holiday. There'll be a backup. There'll be another way to do it. Okay, any questions at the moment where we've got to? I can't see the chat, so I have no idea if anybody's put anything in it. Catherine, have you seen any questions in the chat?
I've got an eye on the chat if anybody would like to pop any questions in there, but just to kind of, there have been a couple of people asked just as we were getting started whether the slides will be sent around. So just to confirm, you'll get a copy of all of these slides after the session within a day or two of the session finishing, and you'll also get a recording of this session as well. So no obligation to take notes or anything unless that's how you learn best. Okay, we have got questions as well. So we've got, what is the protocol if you have a safeguarding concern about a school?
Oh, so about a professional in a school, is that? I'm guessing that is the
Yes.
concern, but please, yeah, it is. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, so that's a very slightly different process, but not really. So it's still that we'd want you to talk to your manager within the 24 hours, but instead of referring to the MASH team, you refer to the LADO team, which is the... Can you remember what LADO stands for, Catherine?
It's local authority designated officer.
Right,
I think.
okay. So basically, it's any professional that you have a concern about with regards to safeguarding, that's where you go. So if it's children and family, you go to the MASH team. If it's any kind of professional working with children, then you go to the LADO.
Thanks, Harriet. There's also a question, are there example policies that we can look at? And Sarah's already answered in the chat that you can ask your regional advisor for a safeguarding policy template. So if you need a little bit of guidance on that, start with your regional advisor. And Sarah says also that she will get a copy added to the web pages to go with the slides. So you should be able to access that after this session.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Feel free to pop your hand up or pop anything in the chat.
There are other opportunities for question asking as well. This isn't your one and only shot, so don't panic if you think of something later on. Okay.
I think we're good.
We are good to move on. I will hand back to you now, Catherine.
Thank you. So just a little bit on kind of record keeping. So no matter what action is taken or not taken, so if it's decided that referral should take place or shouldn't take place, the forum safeguarding lead or DSO or safeguarding manager, kind of whatever that role title is, needs to ensure that there's a completed written record of the incident and what steps were taken and perhaps any factors that led to that decision being taken. It needs to be kept confidentially and ideally separate from any other information that's held by the forum about the individuals involved. So for example, like contacts, we use a CRM or a database for logging interactions with families. We would recommend not storing that information with somebody's file. So keep safeguarding referral notes separately. Slide, please. Thank you. And just to reiterate, as Harriet said earlier, if you think a child or a vulnerable adult is in immediate danger, don't delay. Call 999 immediately. Speak to your safeguarding lead or DSO as soon as possible after calling 999, but make sure it's the priority to contact the emergency services first. After that, you should still complete the safeguarding incident form and all the paperwork afterwards. But the kind of immediate priority should be to complete, to contact services. Thank you. Thanks, Harriet. And then just a couple of pointers here in terms of where you might see safeguarding concerns be raised. Obviously, the rather obvious spaces. So you might have a disclosure made during a conversation, whilst you're delivering a workshop, whilst you're face-to-face doing family activities and things like that. But you could also come across safeguarding concerns in quite unusual and unexpected places. So from Contact's experience, these are all places that we have received safeguarding concern information. You could get information from surveys and questionnaires, through booking forms or web forms, through mailboxes that are not monitored very frequently. You could get them in response to your newsletters or in donation forms. And also we've had occasions where we've received them for people outside of the UK as well. And our advice would be not to assume if you see it and it's not sort of through the course of your regular duties, so perhaps you see something on your forum's Facebook page or something, don't assume that somebody else has dealt with it or will deal with it. If you spot it, it's better that several people raise it to the safeguarding lead than nobody raises it at all and then it gets missed and somebody remains at risk that doesn't need to. So just a kind of reiteration there that if you do see anything concerning, you should follow it through and alert your DSO, safeguarding lead, safeguarding manager, whatever they're called in your forum.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Harriet. Just before we move on to case studies, there's a couple of other questions in the chat.
Okay.
So we've got, could your step be to talk to a member of the school staff, their safeguarding lead, if it was a concern in relation to a parent of a child at the school?
So you have a concern about a parent at a school, And you're asking whether you should speak to the school first. Is that right?
I think, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think if you have a concern about a parent, you follow the processes of speaking with your manager and then deciding whether a referral is made. I think that, you know, if you've got a named school, like a teacher or some pastoral support or something, you can put that in the referral if there's a good relationship there, and that could be helpful. Obviously, if it's, you know, something is happening within the school, you'd give all the school details. But if the key, if you have a concern, you need to make the referral. That's the real key.
Thanks, Harriet. And then another question is, what should we do if the concern is about a sibling of a SEND child? For example, the sibling could be hurt by the SEND child and the reporting is transferred to the social worker of the SEND child. Is there a conflict of interest here?
Okay, that's a really good question, because I think that siblings often are party um, to difficult situations and are put at risk, definitely with a SEND siblings. If there's already a social worker involved, it would be a really good idea to contact that social worker. There should never be a conflict of interest. That's absolutely not how safeguarding works. They don't favour one child over another. If there's a safeguarding issue, there's a safeguarding issue, regardless of who it's involving. They should really, if there's a social worker involved, they should really be aware of the sibling issues, but they may well not be if it, you know, hasn't been brought up. Perhaps they somehow are not aware of it. So I think it'd be really important. If there isn't a social worker involved, then I would make a referral, because that child is at risk. And even if you're, you know, within the work that we do, we're working with children with additional needs and disabilities, but we're working holistically with the whole family. And, you know, referrals need to be made regardless. So that's really important, that you aren't only focusing on the children with disabilities. It's any child or any vulnerable adult that you come into contact with, you need to make the referral.
Thanks, Harriet. Just to follow up to that question as well, then, is that referral, or should that referral be through MASH or directly to the social worker?
So if there's a named social worker involved, I would make it directly to them. I would contact them directly. If there isn't a named social worker involved, then go through MASH, go through the usual channels.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you need to speak with your manager and your safeguarding lead as well before you go ahead and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say sort of that the decision-making process and the discussions that take place between the person who's received the disclosure or who's got the concern and the safeguarding team or the safeguarding manager will kind of shape the approach that you take, whether that's through MASH or through a social worker, and also the level of information that you've got. So sometimes, you know, we experience where we have a concern about someone or about a family, and we don't believe a social worker's involved. And then when we go to make a referral, we discover that they are. Or vice versa, we believe that one is, and then we discover that they're not. So it will very much be on a case-by-case basis as well. But I guess if in doubt, make a referral, go through MASH, and they should be able to look into the rest of it. And then just to flag as well that in those situations, if you are going direct to a social worker where you're able to identify them and make contact with them, you should log that that's the activity that's taken place on your incident form.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in all of these situations, I just want to reiterate that, you know, none of this should be done in isolation. This is not your responsibility on your own. Safeguarding is never only one person's responsibility. So always speak with your manager, speak with your safeguarding lead, your parent participation advisor, somebody else to, you know, discuss what needs to happen next. Within our team at Contact, we have 6 safeguarding officers, and every referral that comes in is sent to all of us, and we all discuss together what we think the next step should be, because none of us are you know, within that safeguarding professional team that make the decisions, we're just raising our concerns, and that shouldn't be left as a responsibility for one person. So always make sure that it's, you know, a collective discussion and decision that's made. Is that all the questions for now, Catherine?
Oh, yeah, we've got another one here. So if you're worried about the mental health of a parent and it becomes an obvious concern, would that be a safeguarding concern?
That's a really, really good question. So mental health conditions can make people vulnerable adults. So you would potentially make a referral as that parent being a vulnerable adult. But if you're concerned about their care for the child due to whatever it is that you're concerned about, then you would make a referral for the child. I think again, this is about us raising concerns rather than making decisions. So we're not going to be able to decide whether that parent's mental health is impacting that child. What we can decide is whether we're concerned about the behaviours that we've heard about or seen or have been raised, and we feel that professional exploration is needed. So I think that's the key. We're about, is this something that needs a professional eye on it, that needs some analysis of the situation? And if we think it is, then we make the referral. So we're not here to decide whether that parent's mental health is impacting that child. We're here to decide whether we have a concern about that child. Does that make sense? Does that answer that question?
Thanks, Harriet. I think so. I'll just keep in mind if there's follow-ups. Who does the referral go to?
Who does the referral go to?
Yes, that's the follow-up question.
Okay, so you'll go to the local authority, and in each local, so that is the local authority of the child or the vulnerable adult that you're concerned about. And each local authority has their own way of doing things, but they're very similar. Usually there's an online form for you to fill in, and you just put in as many details as you can, and they'll pick it up, and they will usually contact back and say, thank you for your referral. This has now been passed over to, you know, the relevant team. So always go to the local authority of the child or vulnerable adult that you're concerned about.
Thanks, Harriet. Just to kind of go back to the kind of that original point around the question around being worried about a parent's mental health, we find often, it's not always the case at all, but in instances that contacts have supported families through, often if they're really struggling, they're really grateful that you've offered to make a referral, because often it can lead to additional support. Obviously, that isn't always going to be the case, and there will be times where it's met with less support from a parent, or it might not be appropriate to seek their consent before you make a referral. But there are a lot of times where they're very grateful for that additional help and that kind of guiding hand into additional support.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate, you know, if they say they don't want you to, that doesn't mean you don't. So, and this is, I guess, where it's more complex for all of you working within your forums, where you've built relationships and you know people and you've had shared experiences. You know, that can be quite difficult to feel like you might feel like you're going against somebody, or you might feel like you're betraying trust. And that's really hard. That's really hard to manage, really hard to deal with. And as I say, later on, we've got some information about some support services that can help you to deal with these kind of more complex situations. But the key, what everything comes down to at the end of the day is, do you feel there's a child or a vulnerable adult who is at risk? If the answer to that is yes, you must do something about it. So as hard as that feels, it's essential. And none of it's going to be your decision making, but I know that might not always be understood by the person that you're referring about. So it is really hard, and nobody's suggesting that any of this is easy, because it absolutely isn't. But at the end of the day, you've got to put that child or vulnerable adult first, and the risk of harm to them.
Thanks, Harriet. I think that's it for the questions up to now.
Okay.
Again, there'll be other opportunities a little bit later to ask any more questions if you come up with anything whilst we're in the breakout rooms.
In the chat in your breakout room, there'll be a case study for you all to read. And then we'd really like you to ask yourselves within the group these 3 questions. Is this a safeguarding issue? If yes, what are your concerns? If no, why not? And what action would you take, if any?
Just a little recap, the questions that we'd asked everybody to consider were, is this a safeguarding issue? What are your concerns? Or if you don't have any concerns, that's okay as well. And what action, if any, would you take in this situation? So we will start with case study 7 that I think was given to group 1. You are talking to a parent and their teenage son who discloses that he has considered ending his life in recent weeks due to the severe depression and anxiety that he has been experiencing. Would anyone from group 1 or any of the groups that reviewed this case study like to share any of their thoughts from the breakout session?
I was in this group, so I can fill in if you like, although
Thank you,
apologies
Sarah.
if my voice goes. So for question 1, we decided, yes, it was a safeguarding issue.
Okay.
So, oh gosh, I mean, plenty of concerns around, their low mood, how low their mood was, and obviously the suicidal thoughts. And so the questions that we had were around, does the child have any other additional needs? It didn't say, it was just, so we wanted more information.
Yep.
And whether they were currently already under CAMHS or any other professionals involved in the family. I'm just reading my very scrappy notes and trying to make sense of them. So we also didn't know the age of the child. So they could be a vulnerable adult, or they could be still under children's services.
Yes.
So teenager is quite a loose term.
It certainly is.
So, and in terms of actions, we definitely kind of wanted to have a discussion with the safeguarding lead / line manager or forum coordinator, whatever the role title is in your forum, in the first instance. And it just felt like there were more conversations to be had. So lots of information gathering from
absolutely.
But also it's quite difficult to ask some of those questions of the young person. So it's and obviously most forums, their contact is with the parents.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. I don't think you'd be speaking to the child or the teenager anyway. I think you'd more likely be speaking to the parent.
Some forums do events that include young people or children. So it just depends on the forum and the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. In this scenario, you're speaking to the parent, but yes, I agree. If you're having a family activity day or something and a teenager discloses these kind of thoughts to you, obviously you'd be following it up with them a little bit. I think you've covered a lot of the kind of pertinent points that we'd be thinking about. I think there are some key points that I'd want a bit more clarity on before I decided whether this needed to go any further. So firstly, I'd want to know if there are any mental health services already involved, as you mentioned, Sarah. So do they have a CAMS worker? Do they have, you know, are they in touch with their GP regarding it? Do they have some other kind of, excuse me, mental health support? Because if that support is already in place, that is really what the referral would be doing. So there wouldn't necessarily be a referral to make if they were already engaged in mental health services. The other thing I'd want to gauge is sort of how far have these thoughts gone? Is there a plan for what they think they might do to end their life? Have they talked about, you know, hoarding pills, or have they given an idea about what they might do? Because there's a huge difference between saying, oh, life is so hard, I just want to end it all, in a sort of moment of real frustration and sadness and you know, difficulty. And then the other end of the scale is someone who has a very clear plan, who has, you know, detailed ideas about what they might do, has made some attempts in the past. So I think you have to weigh up, you know, where you are on that scale with this particular situation. And then also, as you said, there's no information about what kind of additional needs they might have. So that may also play into it. So some exploration about that would be really helpful in your decision making as well. So when we said earlier about getting as much information as you can, those are the kind of things that we'd need, you know, information on. So we don't want you to be asking too many leading, we don't want you to ask any leading questions, but gathering information is really, really important. So any services that are involved is essential to know if you can find out. Any additional needs, obviously really important. The specific age, as you say, teenage is wide ranging. You know, a 13-year-old's behavior is very, very different to a 19-year-old's behavior. And as you rightly point out, potentially different pathways to go down when you're making a referral as well. So all of these things are really, really important to add to your decision making, because where we are within our sort of referral making, what we need to think about is, does this family need additional support? And if so, what sort of support might they be looking at? Do they have any support already involved? Because if they already are engaged with services, then it's not going to make much difference for us making a referral, because those services are already there. It's more about supporting the parent and signposting them to ways they can be supported, perhaps. And you've got your hand up. Did you have a question?
I did. We're talking about finding out whether they're involved with other professionals, if they're known to other services.
Yeah.
But we've got no route into those services, have we? We can't go to CAMS and say, oh, by the way, you're aware that one of your
No.
cases has got this issue.
No.
So
no. But what we have to believe is that if this parent is sharing this information with you, then they're also sharing this information with those involved services. And that would be, if they say, oh yes, he's got a CAMS worker and he has a session every Tuesday morning, what I would encourage then is to say, have you spoken with that worker about your concerns? So that would be sort of the route that I would suggest, because you're right, we can't ring that worker and say, you know, do you know? But we can encourage, if we know that there are services involved, then we encourage the parents to share this information with those services. Thank you. That was a great question. Are there any other questions about this case study, or anything you want to add or feel like I've missed or don't agree with?
Harriet, when you said about you don't know whether this young person has a plan, I would be worried about asking that question, because It's a very important
Absolutely.
question, you know, and
Yeah.
personally, I've
Yeah,
had to ask that
definitely.
question. I've been had to ask that question as well,
Yeah.
of my own son. But isn't that something that, you know, when you get through to someone like who deals with mental
Yeah.
health or mental health, you know, crisis line, isn't
Yeah.
that something that they would be?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And if it, so that what I mean there is, if the parent has said to you, they've said X, Y, and Z, you know, they've said this is what they want to do, this is what they plan, this is, you know, then you'll have an idea of how kind of
Right. Okay.
serious that is. But yeah, I wouldn't encourage you at all to say, you know, directly ask. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. That needs to come from a professional. But it's just about the information that you've been given from what they've said. How much can you sort of work out, if you like? You know, it was this a passing comment in a moment of real frustration and anger, or a really significant meltdown, or, you know, or is or does the parent feel that and share with you that they have, you know, more detailed plans, and that is a bigger concern, if you see.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That makes
Does
sense.
that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a fine line, and it's so difficult to navigate. But you're absolutely right. You know, that's not our place to ask direct questions about that. I would never encourage you to ask leading questions about things, but it's just gleaning whatever you can from the conversations you're having. And the more detail you have in a conversation, and you can kind of take out the factual bits, the more able you are to make more informed decisions.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Harriet.
Cool. Anything else anyone wanted to add or query? And the thing is, if you don't have this information and you think that a decision can only be made with that information, then you make the referral and the professionals make that decision, or, you know, do those inquiries. But if you can get some information that can help guide you, it can just make for a more efficient referral, or not if one's not needed, because we all know that, you know, referrals can be quite intrusive and, you know, challenging for families, and you know, we have to be aware of having factual information to make a referral on, not just a gut feeling or your own interpretation of something.
Just to flag as well, you will, if you get to kind of a referral process, often the forms will ask for a lot of information that you're really unlikely to have. They'll often ask for things like the date of birth of the child and things like that you very, very unlikely to have that information, and it wouldn't prevent that case from then being looked at. So as
Yeah.
Harriet said, if we share as much information as we have, there will be gaps, and that's okay. That's, you know, that's for then that team to make contact with the family and do their own investigations and take it further from there.
Absolutely.
Just one more question in the chat on this case study. We've got, what if they're only suicidal thoughts and not actions?
Absolutely. And I think that sort of relates back to, are there services involved? Because, you know, those are still really difficult, big feelings to manage and big thoughts to deal with, and, you know, can still you can still be at risk of harm. So I think even if they are thoughts, it sort of really depends on what other services are involved, and, you know, signposting, if it wouldn't be a child protection issue, but it might be something, you know, that you'd support a parent to go to the GP or make a referral to a mental health support organization. So yeah, don't dismiss it if it is thoughts and not plans, but equally we have to be careful about what constitutes, you know, a significant harm, and risk, and finding the most appropriate professional to deal with that.
Thanks, Harriet. We've got another question. Would it be best to pass on numbers such as Cam's crisis team?
Potentially, yes. Yeah, I think that would be really good. I think, whatever you decide in terms of the safeguarding, you're still going to want to provide some additional support for the parent. So crisis numbers, signposting to where parents can get support for themselves to manage these feelings and issues that are coming up. So it's kind of looking at it holistically. But that would be the more holistic side of things, not whether or not you make a referral for safeguarding.
Thank you. Just a couple of other comments on this one, and I think we'll need to move on to the next one.
Yep.
So they go to, so I think this is about a specific concern. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but they go to CAMS and has a psychotherapist. And I think I would probably say, if we're talking about a specific case that you want a bit more support on, I would suggest that you raise it with your safeguarding lead or whoever they are within your forum, or if that's you and you want a bit of additional support, please contact your participation advisor and we'll be able to point you in the right direction. But if I've misinterpreted your question, please just clarify in the chat. We can go back to that one. And then we've got just a comment that I would tell them to go to A&E and CAMS then have to see them in 7 days.
Yeah, I mean, if you think it's an emergency and you think, that this plan is happening, potentially happening now, then yes, absolutely. They need to go to A&E, and that's, but that's what we were talking about earlier about ringing the police or ringing, if you think that there's immediate harm, something's going to happen right now, then yeah, don't prioritize contacting emergency services first.
Thanks, Harriet. I think that's all the questions on this one for now. If you want to move on to the next one.
Yeah. So case study number 1, this was in group 2, is that right?
I think group 2 and group 1 may have had it a bit later in the session as well.
Okay. A mum you previously met at an event contacts you by telephone. She tells you she's exhausted. She says it's due to the behaviour of her 15-year-old son, P. P has learning difficulties and his behaviour is very challenging. P is violent to mum and his younger siblings. Mum tells you she has 2 other children at home and is worried about them due to P's behaviour. As she speaks, she's distressed and tells you nothing is being done. Do you have anybody from either group 1 or 2 that would be happy to give a little rundown of your discussion? If you want to put your hand up if you feel confident enough. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. Okay. Catherine and I, shall we chat about it instead?
Yeah. Just to say as well, if you've got some thoughts on it, if you were in that group or if you weren't in that group, feel free to pop them in the chat as well, and then we can kind of shout out any thoughts that people have got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that sort of immediately makes me think, oh, I need to ask a little bit about this is the mum is distressed and tells you nothing is being done, which suggests that maybe referrals have been made already. There might be some other professionals involved. So there might be a social worker you could talk to directly if they're already involved, potentially. But sibling on sibling abuse is a reality and is a risk of harm, and definitely needs to be worked with, and the family need to be supported to look at that. So I would say yes, there is definitely a safeguarding concern here for me.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. And so, as I say, if mum can make it clear whether there is a social worker involved, that would determine sort of potentially what happens next. If there's already a social worker involved, then I would suggest saying, would you be happy for me to contact them? Would you be happy for me to share your concerns? But if if I'm misunderstanding that last section and there's nothing being done because no referral has been made, then absolutely I think a referral needs to be made and support needs to be given to the family, because it sounds like a really challenging situation.
Yeah, definitely. Comment in the chat as well. Something else that we might want to find out is, does he have help for his learning difficulties, which is absolutely something we'd be looking to find out.
Yeah, definitely. Sarah, did you have something to add?
I did.
Excellent.
As we talked about this in our group.
Oh, good. Brilliant.
And one of the parents from one of the forums said that this particular case study feels like every day a lot of parents have this experience and aren't getting the support. I don't know if anyone from that group wants to come on and just say a bit more about that. I can't remember who it was, so I can't name you.
I was on the group, so it's Emma Baker.
You are a gem.
It'll have to be really quick because I'm on the school run. My child finishes in like the next couple of minutes. So
no problem.
Yeah, we basically said that this literally, I think someone else said it as well, but we see this at our forum quite a lot where people mention things like this, and it's really common obviously for sending children to hit out when they're angry. So obviously you do come across this quite a lot, and it is sometimes hard to know what to do with it. But I think we would try and probe more to find out obviously what's going on exactly, what support they've got already. You know, has there been a referral already to social services, things like that. And just obviously what support they feel we can offer them and things like that, really. So
definitely, yeah, absolutely, Emma, that's exactly what I'd advise. And you know, within Contact there's lots of workshops and information and advice that, you know, can support with more challenging behavior and with different ways of managing situations. So you can, you know, even if services are involved and it's decided a referral's not going to make a difference, there's still things that you can refer them to within Contact and within other local organisations and charities. But if there isn't services involved, I'd really encourage that to be a priority, I think.
Thanks, Harriet. Thanks.
Can I just add to that? And I can't, apologies, I can't remember if you said it, Harriet. So if I'm saying what you've already said, you'll have to get me later. But this particular one just made me think, with the comments that Emma made about this being quite a regular situation. It made me think about how it's really important to get the specifics of what kind of behaviour, what level of violence, are they using implements, dig down to the real specifics, because that could help that parent bump up whatever priority list the social worker's got to make it a higher risk.
Yeah, you're completely right. And, you know, a 15-year-old boy could be 6 foot plus, you know, they could be really kind of physically much more capable and stronger than the mum and the younger siblings, and that sort of adds weight to, you know, a younger or smaller child that isn't quite as strong, I guess. So yeah, as much detail as you can get, as we were saying earlier, not by asking direct challenging questions, but just within the course of your conversation, as much factual information as you can glean is really, really helpful for making decisions about whether referral needs to be made or not. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got just a couple of questions in the chat as well. So, would or should a social worker talk to us thinking about GDPR? And I think in my experience, Harriet, you might want to come in as well, is that they will not give a huge amount of information to us, but they're generally cooperative and they want that kind of information. They will verify that, you know, we're talking about the same family, for example, but they'll give very little or almost no information about what's going on specifically for that family, and that's correct.
Yeah, as it should be, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. But also I think if you've got mum's consent to speak with the social worker, then, you know, that encourages that sort of relationship and that joint working.
Yeah. And then a comment, I think it's important that the mum feels listened to and her concerns being taken seriously as well, especially if she feels like nothing's being done. A listener is really important in these situations.
Absolutely, 100% agree. Yeah, definitely. And that empathetic listening is going to be key to her feeling that support and, you know, being heard. So yeah, just yeah, couldn't agree more, really.
Mm-hmm. And then a question around, would there be a case to contact the LADO even if they already have a social worker?
No, I don't think so, because I don't see a professional issue in here. So you only contact the LADO if you're concerned about a professional causing harm to a child or vulnerable adult. This is about the child and within the family, so it would be through MASH or whatever the local authority's route is.
I
Hi.
wonder, is it how, oh, sorry.
Hi. I
Pippa.
just wanted to add to my question, really. In terms of her saying nothing's been done,
Mm-hmm.
in case a social worker is not doing what they should be doing, really, is what I
Right.
mean.
Sorry, I see what you
And not
mean,
to
yeah.
just, is it right at the beginning you were saying, don't assume someone else is going to make the referral.
Yeah, very
Similar to
true.
that, they may have
Yeah.
a social worker, but they may not be a good one, or you don't
Absolutely.
know. So my feeling is it's best to just report it anyway, because it might alert somebody within the authorities that they're not getting the support they need, even though they should be already been referred.
I see what you mean now. Thank you for explaining that. Yes. So the LADO is used if the professional is causing the harm. So not if they're not doing their job, but if they are creating the risk and the harm. So what I would do if they're not doing their job is I would direct them to make a complaint about their social worker if they feel that not enough is being done by them, and support them to complete that complaint form. Agreed. Yes, you could make a referral anyway if it's not felt that enough is being done. However, from my experience, the social workers receiving the referral would simply pass it on to the allocated social worker. So I don't think it would sort of raise the level of service that they received. I think you'd need to do that via a complaint system. And also, you know, I think it's really important to remember that there are always more than one side to a story, and it's really tricky sometimes what a parent wants to happen and needs to happen can't happen for whatever reason. So it's about that listening, understanding, ensuring that they feel heard, but we can't always fix everything, and that's really difficult to manage. But unfortunately, it is part of this situation. Sometimes things can't be resolved in the way that we hope that they could be. So yeah, I think it's about making sure the mum feels heard, referring them to other charities and organisations and systems of support that can help alongside the local authority, as well as making a referral as needed. Does that
Thanks,
answer
Harriet.
your question, Pippa?
Thank you.
Just kind of on that point as well, there's another comment in the chat, another couple of comments in the chat, just around if it's a professional issue, or if not, if I'll read it verbatim, sorry. It could be a professional issue or whistleblowing, but only if the nothing being done element turns out to be genuine inaction. So as you said, Harriet, in terms of kind of referring that through the complaints policy at the local authority would be appropriate in that case.
Yeah.
And then just a note that with consent of the parent, we often contact the social work manager to check if everything is being done. So that's another avenue to
That's another
check it.
possibility. Yeah, yeah. If the parent gives you that consent, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. Catherine, do you want to read out the next case study for group
Yep.
3?
Yep. So group 3, we think had case study 4. You were facilitating a workshop about behaviour. During the workshop, a parent discloses to the group that she keeps her 13-year-old daughter who has autism, learning difficulties and is non-speaking safe at night by not allowing her out of the bedroom. She says that she ties her to the bed to prevent damaging things in her bedroom and leaving the house. She says that the tie she uses is a soft material and it allows her to walk around the room, but prevents them from leaving the bedroom. She says that since she introduced this system, she's been able to sleep better as she knows that her daughter is safe.
Anybody from group 3 feel they'd like to wade in on this one?
So I think this is me.
Oh, brilliant.
I was designated feedback. Oh,
Thanks, Michelle.
Love it.
I've got the camera feedback now. So we decided, as it was a safeguarding, and we would make a safeguarding referral. For me, I'll take ownership of this if it's wrong, okay? Is I would like to do it with the mum, step by step, and explain why we're doing it for extra support, that there's some things that concern us about what's happening, and we would make a referral straight away.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a busybody, you see, so I'd go around and getting all leaflets and giving them all these leaflets for support. But for safeguarding, that is exactly what we do. We do it with mum, explain step by step, and offer mum some support. And perhaps one of the key things that I would mention to safeguarding as well as the child is non-verbal. So if an investigation, then somebody needs to be prepared to be able to have those skills to speak to the adult.
Absolutely. Yeah, really key. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I completely agree. That, yeah, mum needs all the additional holistic support available. But yeah, you can't tie people up to keep them in their bedroom. That is definitely a huge risk in terms of fire and just not, like their human rights. Like you can't tie people up. That's not the way to manage it. But I understand, because she's really frightened about what might happen, and not getting sleep every night because you're too frightened to go to sleep is not sustainable, so something definitely has to change, and some support is definitely needed in there 100%. But yeah, this is not okay, and definitely needs to be supported further. And as you say, absolutely alongside mum every step of the way, as long as we don't feel that's going to put the child at further risk. Perfect. Thank you very much. Cool. Okay. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to add on this one, or any queries or anything?
We don't have anything in the chat just yet. Does anybody else have any thoughts they'd like to share or any comments?
Sorry, I've just we did discuss about whether this is where mum is getting her information from. So it might be that she's acting which she thinks is in the very best way, but someone has ill-advised her.
Absolutely.
Good point, yeah. Absolutely.
And and again, this is more sort of about your own thoughts and about judgment. So it wouldn't be something you'd put in a referral, because you need to stick to fact for that. But absolutely, she wants her child to be safe. She needs to sleep at night. This is the process she's come up with, as you say, may well have been advised by somebody, so thinks she's doing the right thing. There's nothing written here that makes me think it's malicious or, you know, to cause harm to her child. It's from what's written, it sounds completely the opposite to me, that she's trying to keep everybody safe. But when making a referral, none of those points are facts, and none of them need to go into the referral because we need to work on the facts. But yes, I would agree with what you say. You know, it looks like she's in a very challenging situation and is trying to do the best for her and her daughter.
Just to add as well there, a comment from the chat around contacting the social worker to consult occupational therapy around safe sleeping resources like a specialist bed, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, there's lots, wherever she's got this source of support, there are lots of other ways that this can be managed. And yeah, definitely pointing her in the direction of just some general support around autism, around learning difficulties, around being non-verbal. You know, there's so much that you can support her with. But yeah, it needs a bit of social work intervention, I think. Okay. If there are no further questions about that one, we'll go to the last. We didn't read that one out, did we? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah, we did.
Okay, good. Excellent. We can edit that bit out. Okay. Case study number 6. You have recently run an online feedback questionnaire via SurveyMonkey. You're looking through the entries a month or so later, and in one of them, a respondent has written in any other comments text box, "My dad is abusing me." You have the respondent's name, full address, and email address. You don't have any other personal information. What do we think about this one? So this would be group 4. If anybody from group 4 would be willing to share your discussion and your thoughts around this case study, it would be much appreciated.
That's me. I made some notes.
Amazing.
Yes, we believe it's a safeguarding issue.
Mm-hmm.
Our concerns that a child is at risk or a vulnerable adult at risk. Indicating dad in the sentence is a form of dependency on somebody. So we're assuming it's somebody that is either vulnerable adult, very young, or a child. Obviously, it doesn't say what sort of abuse, but any abuse is abuse. We decided that we would follow our normal procedures, that we would contact our safeguarding officer and possibly report online and go through the MASH procedures. It could be somebody that's already known to them, so they would know that it's being dealt with and they could indicate to us that perhaps it is known about. It could be a mental health issue. It could also be a hoax. It could be any of those things. But as we are now aware of it, it becomes our responsibility to do something about it and possibly make a referral, and also to review our own procedures, because a month later is something that perhaps it needs looking at. It could be that the questionnaire is absolutely just an everyday thing that we're just getting feedback on, but yes, perhaps we do need to review for things like that popping up a bit more often. So it's a reflection on ourselves as well to sort of make sure that we're up to date with what we're looking at and what we're asking people, really. I think
Perfect. You have ticked every single box.
Yay, well done, team. Good team. From right across the country, I must add.
Brilliant. Good. Yeah, I think the main thing that you said that really made me feel like, yes, everybody's on the same page here, is you don't know. It could be a hoax. It could be anything, but you know about it now, so it's your responsibility to do something about it. And that is absolutely the bottom line, basically. It's not for you to decide whether it's a hoax. It's not for you to make a judgment on whether it's really abuse or not. all you have are the facts, a name, address, an email address, and someone saying their parent is abusing them. It needs a referral. That's the end of that. There's nothing else, you know, there's no kind of grey area there really. And as you say, you know about it, so you need to do something. Absolute perfect answer. Thank you so much. And yeah, as you say, I mean, you could review your processes and stuff, but it's a really unlikely way that you will have a disclosure. Really unlikely sort of scenario. So I wouldn't beat yourself up about your own processes too much, because I really think it's, you know, unlikely. However, it's possible. So cool. Were there any comments in the chat, Catherine, about this one?
There isn't yet, but if anybody does have anything else to share, please feel free
Oh,
to either pop your hand
And
up.
just
Oh,
got a hand up.
Sorry.
No, don't apologise.
As we have no idea on the age of the person, who would we make a referral to?
So that's a good question. And I think you have to make an assumption basically, because they've said my dad is abusing me. I would suspect it would be, we'd start with down the children's route. We'd start with MASH, and go from there, because as soon as they've got that information of the full name, the address, they'll know, you know, if they're already in the services, in the system, and then, you know, refer the concern appropriately, or they'll contact them and then they will determine that they are a child or a vulnerable adult, and they will, you know, move it on into whatever service that is best placed. So because we don't have the information, I'd go down the MASH safeguarding route
And
first.
not to, because I'd wondered about 101 to just sort of see what they thought and hand it over to them.
Possibly, but I think we're quite clear that this is a safeguarding issue. So I think it's better placed with the local authority, and then they make their sort of investigation and refer as they see fit. Because once, you know, that you're just removing that step, because that's pretty much what the police would do. Yes, they might look up their age, but I think you just need to get it to the local authority, to social services, and then let them deal with that further on.
Also, because multi-agency involves all of that anyway. If
Absolutely.
you go to 101, you're just involving another step, I suppose.
Yeah. Whenever they do, the initial response and assessment team will always, you know, look at all the different variables, and, you know, even when they say their age is one thing, that might not be the case, particularly with unaccompanied minors and that kind of thing. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that. They just need this information so they can make the next set of actions, basically. Thank you, though. Anything else, Catherine?
Nothing in the chat. No.
Okay, well, we are now 3:45, so doing really well with our time. So that's the end of the case studies. So what we just wanted to mention was the CIC Wellbeing Service. So we've talked about, you know, the difficulties being part of a forum and having relationships and friendships and things with people in a slightly different way from if you were working, you know, a step removed. And so making referrals in those instances could be feel really difficult, feel uncomfortable, and you might just need a bit of extra support to help you through. Or even, to be honest, just regular referrals. Some of the things are quite difficult to think about, difficult to hold, and if you need some additional support, there's counselling sessions available. And, you know, this training might have brought up some issues for you, so please do reach out and either speak with your manager or your parent participation advisor or the CIC Wellbeing Service and get some additional support if needed, because nothing within this is, you know, what anybody wants to happen. Nothing is pleasant to think about, and if things have been brought up for you today and you need some additional support, please do reach out and get that. So we've got the username and password there for you to use with the website. And as we say, these slides will all be sent out to you, so that information will be coming your way. So don't worry if you haven't been able to write it right now. Are there any other questions at all from anybody? Just giving you one last chance to baffle us and see if there's anything that you're not too sure about. But hopefully what we've covered today hasn't been brand new for you, but has sort of increased your confidence and your knowledge in managing these situations. I think, you know, if you take away anything from this, I'd really encourage you to take away the fact that you're never on your own with this. You're always doing this within a team. It's never in isolation, but that safeguarding is everybody's business. So if you have a concern, please share it with your manager or your safeguarding lead, and you know, act on that concern. Okay. Thank you for coming. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for sticking with us. I know it's a really challenging topic, but it's a really, really important one. So thanks very much for coming to the training and taking this seriously. Sarah, did you have a question?
It was a question from the chat.
Oh, right.
What support does Contact give to parents with a special needs child?
Oh, goodness.
Where to start?
Yes, quite. I'm so sorry, we should have included a slide on this. Contact provides a huge amount of support. We have a helpline. We have the helpline provides support with benefits, education, social care. I think those are the main things that come up, but they're so skilled and so knowledgeable. There's so much information available via the helpline. We also provide workshops, giving information and training for families on a huge variety of topics to support children with additional needs and disabilities. We have a listening ear service, so that is manned by parent carers who were all experts by experience, who've all walked a similar path to the people that need the support, and are willing to, you know, listen and signpost and support people with any problem they have, anything at all. That's a free phone service. We have family days out. Catherine, help. There's so many things.
You do such a great job, Harriet.
I'm terrified I've forgotten something.
Sarah's posting some links in the chat as well, and I wonder before
you.
we send the slides, right, we could add in a couple of additional slides about links to some of the kind of key information about the support that Contact offer. Just thinking about some other things, we've got a campaigns and research team as well that help parents to take action on things that are important to them or affect them and people within their communities. Online, we have a medical directory, we've got frequently asked questions, we've got an amazing family finance team that can help families access their entitlements. And then we've got some sort of regional localized work going on as well, which is a little bit dependent on funding. So depending on where you are in England, there might be specific activity taking place that we can invite you to and help families that are in your area. But there's so much to talk about, some of the support that we offer. We can send some more information with the slides.
The website is full to bursting with information, resources, support. And I think the key thing to also add is that we're pan disability. You don't have to have a diagnosis. and it's 0 to 25. So we're really super inclusive of anything. If you have a concern, a query, you're not sure, you need some help, come to us and we will do our very best to find you the support that you need.
Thanks, Harriet. Someone's actually just put in the chat, thank you, the contact helpful guide as well. So if you don't already
yes.
have a contact helpful guide, I have a demo copy just here, which I'll try and
Amazing.
show you. It's blaming out. But it is a 100-ish page guide of everything that parents might need to know. And you can request one of those online. So we'll include the link for that as well in the slides that we sent through.
Excellent. And that's completely free, isn't it? You just apply for it and they send it out.
Yep.
Do you think that covers it, Sarah?
I think that covers it. So it just remains for me to say thank you so much to Harriet and Catherine. Thank you to our amazing participants for their great contributions through the session. So thank you all so much.